I've been a maintenance worker and plumber in Los Angeles for over 15 years. I've seen it all: busted mains, flooded basements, sewage backups. I am used to the grime of this city. But absolutely nothing could have prepared me for what was waiting on that roof in February of 2013. The complaints started coming into the front desk on a Tuesday. The Cecil Hotel already had a dark, heavy reputation, but this was different. Guests on the upper floors were calling down, annoyed and disgusted. They said the shower pressure was just a trickle. They complained that the water coming out of the faucets looked murky, almost brown. But it was an older woman staying on the 5th floor who said the words that still make my skin crawl to this day. She told the manager that the water she used to brush her teeth tasted strangely sweet. The manager was frantic. He handed me my keys and told me to get up to the roof immediately to check the main water tanks. There are 4 of them up there, massive 1,000-gallon metal cylinders that feed the drinking water to all 15 floors of the building. Walking through the hallways of the Cecil feels like walking through a graveyard. Decades of tragedy, madness, and disappearances seem baked into the peeling wallpaper. As I climbed the narrow concrete utility stairs, the air grew incredibly stale. It felt thick, almost hard to breathe. The only sound was my own heavy boots echoing against the walls. But in a place like the Cecil, you always feel like someone is walking just a few steps behind you. The roof access door is strictly off-limits to guests. It's wired with a loud alarm and secured with a heavy iron padlock. No one could get up there without tripping the system. I pulled out my master keys, undid the lock, and pushed the heavy metal door open. The blazing California sun hit me instantly, along with a rush of hot, dry wind. The roof was completely deserted. Just the steady, mechanical hum of the AC units and those 4 white water tanks standing against the smoggy LA skyline like giant tombstones. I walked over to the main tank and grabbed the metal service ladder attached to its side. The steel was burning hot under the midday sun, and that was when I first caught the smell. At first it was faint, just a hint of something spoiled left out in the heat, but with every rung I climbed, the stench grew thicker and heavier. It was a sickening, overwhelmingly sweet smell of decay. I pulled the collar of my work shirt over my nose, but it didn't help. The odor was suffocating. It coated the back of my throat. When I reached the top platform, my stomach dropped. The heavy metal hatch of the water tank was pushed aside. Just slightly, maybe a couple of inches. That lid weighs nearly 100 pounds. The wind couldn't have moved it, and the roof door had been locked from the inside. I braced my boots against the hot metal, gripped the edge of the rusted lid, and pulled it back. The stench that hit my face was so concentrated, so foul, my vision actually blurred for a second. In the dead silence of the roof, all I could hear was the gentle lapping of water inside the dark cavern of the tank. I pulled out my flashlight and shined the beam down into the pitch-black space. The water inside was a murky, rust-brown color. Floating near the surface were pieces of clothing, a dark jacket, shorts, and then I saw her. A pale, bloated face resting just inches beneath the dark water. Her eyes were wide open, staring blindly upward into the beam of my flashlight. Her dark hair was fanned out around her head like a tangled web. It was Elisa Lam, the missing tourist the LAPD had been desperately searching for across the city for almost 3 weeks. And she had been floating in the hotel's drinking water the entire time. I slammed the hatch shut, scrambled down the ladder, and called the police. As I walked back through the lobby later that afternoon, my hands were violently shaking. I looked at the tourists sitting in the cafe, drinking their coffee, washing their hands in the restrooms. They didn't know yet. Years have passed since that day, but I've never drank tap water again, because every time I turn on a faucet and watch the water pour out, I'm terrified it's going to run dark, and I'm terrified I'll taste that same, sickeningly sweet flavor. It happened a few years ago, during one of my night shifts as a paramedic. Nights are usually quiet here. Small town, empty roads, a thermos of coffee keeping you awake. Most of the time, you're just waiting for something to happen. But that night, it started differently. Even the call felt wrong. It was 2:47 a.m. Dispatch said they'd received a distress call from Highway 14, Mile marker 56. A man's voice said, "Help me, please, can't move." Then cut off. Jake, my partner, and I hit the siren and drove out fast. The road was dead quiet. No headlights, no other cars, just darkness ahead. When we reached the spot, our headlights hit nothing. No car, no debris, just icy grass along the ditch. GPS said, "You have arrived." We radioed dispatch. They rechecked the location, same coordinates. "Caller's phone is still paying there," they said. I walked down the ditch, sweeping the lights side to side. All I heard was the wind, and Jake behind me. Then he said, "Hey, you smell that?" Gasoline. Faint, almost gone, but it was there. We kept searching through the frost and brush. Half an hour, nothing. We got back in the truck, ready to call it a false alarm. Then dispatch came through again. "Be advised, phone owner identified. Robert Haynes." Robert Haynes? I froze. That was the trucker who died in a crash, right here, last week. Jake and I had been on that call too. I remembered his mangled rig, his shattered phone. We just sat there, headlights cutting through the fog. Neither of us said a word. Then the dispatcher's voice broke the silence. "Unit 32, please confirm. No sign of life on scene?" I pressed the mic. "Negative," I said. "No one here." And right then, the radio crackled again. "Help me, please, can't move." Same words, same voice. Next morning, I asked dispatch for the recording. They searched the system. Nothing. No call, no timestamp, no audio file. Like it never existed. But I heard it. We both did. And sometimes, on long, empty drives, I swear I still hear it, in the hum of the radio, that same broken voice calling for help. This story is inspired by multiple documented emergency service cases in the U.S., particularly one reported near Kingsville, Texas, where 911 operators received a distress call traced to the phone of a man who had died in a crash several days earlier. The event was logged but never fully explained. Christmas Eve, 1953. In New Zealand, families are getting ready for Christmas Day. In one evening train, almost 300 people sit in the warm light of the carriage, talking quietly and thinking about home and presents. Outside the windows, it is dark. The train is moving through the central North Island towards a small place called Tangi. Ahead, there is a bridge over a river with a strange name, the Wangu River. This area is close to Mount Ruapehu, an active volcano. High on the mountain, there is a crater lake filled with hot, dirty water. Sometimes the wall of the lake breaks and a huge flow of water, mud, and rocks rushes down the mountain. This kind of flow is called alahar. On that December day in 1953, alahar came down from Ruapehu. It hit the Wangu River and smashed into the bridge supports. The heavy water and rocks washed away part of the bank and weakened the piers under the rails, but it was night. From the top of the bridge, the rails still looked almost normal. The train driver could not see how much damage was under the tracks. The train was called the Wellington-Auckland Night Express. It had a steam locomotive and 9 carriages. On board were about 285 people, workers, soldiers, couples, and children going home for Christmas. At about 10:21 at night, the train reached the bridge near Tangoai. The locomotive went on to the damaged part of the bridge. A few seconds later, the structure failed. The front of the bridge collapsed. The locomotive and the first 6 carriages fell more than 10 meters down into the flooded river. Metal twisted. Wood broke. The cold water swallowed whole carriages in the dark. The 3 last carriages did not fall completely. They hung at the edge of the broken bridge or stayed on the track. People in those cars felt a violent shock. Some were able to escape and tried to help others. In the river, the situation was terrible. The water was fast and full of debris. Many passengers were trapped inside the coaches under the surface. Others were thrown into the river and pulled away by the current. Local people heard the crash and the screams. They ran to the river with lanterns and simple tools. In the dark and cold, they pulled survivors from the water and from broken windows, risking their own lives. When rescue teams and police arrived, they saw a terrible scene. Carriages lying in the river, pieces of bridge everywhere, luggage and toys floating in the water. Search and recovery went on for days. There were almost 300 people on the train that night. In the end, 151 people were confirmed dead. Some bodies were never found and were lost in the river. An official investigation followed. Engineers and scientists studied the bridge, the river, and the volcano. They concluded that the lahar from Mount Rua had destroyed the support of the bridge just hours before the train arrived. The disaster showed that the railway system and warning systems were not ready for this kind of natural danger. After Tangwai, New Zealand changed safety rules. Engineers improved bridges near rivers, and new systems were created to watch the volcano and the crater lake and to send alerts if a lahar started. Today, there is a memorial near the site of the crash. On stone plaques, you can read the names of the people who died that Christmas Eve. Every December, families and officials come there to remember them. The railway line is still in use and trains still cross the Hangu River. The place looks quiet now, but for New Zealand, Tangai is a symbol of sudden loss and the power of nature. On Christmas Eve, when people in the country sit around bright trees and open gifts, some also think about that dark night in 1953, a night when a train full of hope and celebration never reached its final station, and a river with crying waters took 151 lives in just a few minutes.